So part 3, there was a suggestion that I should check out a Stephen King series called The Gunslinger. Well, it's called The Dark Tower, but the first book is called The Gunslinger. And it's really good. And no, I have not read it before. I started to read it when I was like 13 or 14 when it first came out in the 80s. And I couldn't get into it. I read like the first couple of chapters and I was just like, nah, I don't get this. This is weird. I don't like it. But I've been listening to it on audio lately. Thank you, person who suggested it. And it's really, really good. And I'm on the second book now called The Gathering of the Three. I think it's called The Gathering of the Three. Anyway, the first book is called The Gunslinger. And it talks about an alternate universe where there's been like a nuclear war or something. And it's just, everything's run down to basically a feudal system. And there's an order of people who are like knights of the Round Table. And they have certain things in their world that we have in ours. Like they have the Beatles in their world. They have the song Hey Jude. And they have, I think they have Arthurian legend, Knights of the Round Table. And they have other things too, but not a lot. And remnants of another time. And the suggestion is that some kind of war happened and a lot of people died. And so there's all these old gas stations around from like 1,000 years ago, but you can't really use anything. So nothing is mechanized. And, or very few things are mechanized. There's a few things that still work, generators and things, but they're on the fritz. They're about to go out. And the description of this world is just surreal. And then the whole point of it is that there's timelines. And there's dimensional realities and things that sound like what's going on with CERN and the Mandela Effect. Weird things like that. And it's just uncanny. And there's even a situation in the second book where somebody's eyes change color because somebody else is like jumping into their body or seeing through their eyes like you would see through a camera lens. Or a movie screen or whatever. And I've even had that happen. It's just really creepy how uncanny this stuff is. I swear I haven't read this series. I don't know anything about it really. I'm just now really getting into it as an adult. And it's what's even lonelier and crazier, and I can't really share this with anyone, is that fictional constructs seem more like my reality lately for the last several years than anything in quote-unquote mundane reality. And I'm at the point now where it's just like, I don't really feel a need to kowtow to mundane factors anymore. And increasingly, I almost feel like an oracle at Delphi. Like, I almost feel like they would come out and give announcements like maybe once a year or twice a year. And I almost feel like I don't really feel a need to send out messages to the public. I feel like a need to just kind of go within or go with a very small group of people who I honor and trust and can be with. And that number is just so small. It's so depressingly small. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's part of the process of waking up. The feeling of isolation. I had a client ask me, she's incredibly psychic. She's a real powerhouse. Like, how do you deal with the isolation? And I was just like, I don't really have an answer for that. Other than you just deal with it. You just, the Stoics, maybe you should look into the Stoics. Stoic philosophy, because there just aren't that many people who are going to get it, who I have found geographically even live anywhere near you. That's another thing I've noticed. It's like the more you wake up, the less closer you will be geographically in proximity to anybody who would get you or you could spend time with. It's like sorry to sound like a spoiled brat, but I'm so sensitive and high-strung at this point that I can't even be around quote-unquote normals for more than like half an hour without jumping out of my skin. And even people who mean well, even friends who mean well, who just don't get it, or who are suppressing it on purpose so they can have materialistic comfort in exchange, and normalcy in exchange for that, even though I know they could just activate it just like that, and they're highly telepathic and highly skilled at that. They hide it. They're hiding in plain sight. And I don't have that capability. I'm from Ohio. We don't lie. So, you know, when you tell it like it is, when you just spill the beans like that, you just put it on the table, a lot of people scatter. So back to the, and you just, the result is you're isolated a lot. It's not for want of trying to find your tribe. God knows I have, and I'm still, I think I have found some of them, but they're scattered all over the globe. They don't live anywhere near me. And none of them live near each other either. There's maybe a couple of them that live in the same country. Maybe even close enough for driving distance, but mostly far-flung regions. You know, I don't think there's anyone within 5,000 miles who I can talk with personally. I mean, it's just, I mean, I have some friends in the city I live in who I'm close to, but what I'm talking about is a deeper level of tribe. I don't think I'm explaining myself very well, but nonetheless, I will persist. So about the Mandela effect, just a couple of examples that were more profound for me than just the changing of a spelling of a cereal box brand name. One of the things that happened to me that I have not heard of that was really kind of made me panicky was, I think it was last spring in 2015. I remember a news blitz in the New York Times, and leave in the comments section below if you also experienced this particular thing, because this is one of those Mandela effect things I haven't heard of. I heard in the New York Times, Washington Post, all the major news items, overseas as well, I think it was in the UK Independent, they mentioned this. They had definitively, the FBI had definitively, unequivocally discovered who D.B. Cooper, the 1970s folk hero hijacker, had definitively been discovered as his identity. They had gotten his DNA. His children had stepped forward. He had a son and a daughter. He might have had more children, but I do remember he had at least 2 kids, one boy and one girl, adults at that point. And if you're not familiar with D.B. Cooper, just Google it. It was an extremely famous, very cocky hijacker who demanded $200,000 in 1971 and to be taken on board a plane to Mexico, I think it was, or I don't know, somewhere. And about halfway through, he jumped out of the plane. And it was believed he was to be many people over the years, and or that he had died. And so this was one of the more infamous FBI hunts in the history of the FBI. He was world famous. Anyway, so in 2015, I distinctly remember from multiple news sources, and I wish I had saved this on my computer, but that they had definitively, with DNA evidence, the money, they had the serial numbers, everything that he had taken. He had lived comfortably, and then he had died, I think, of cancer in 1995, I think. I think he died of lung cancer, or some kind of cancer. Maybe lymphoma, I'm not sure. But, and his kids had finally stepped forward per his request 10 years after his death, or something, or 50, I'm sorry, like, something like 25 years after his death, or 20 years after his death, to tell the world that he was, or maybe the FBI had known about this, I don't know. I'm sorry I'm rambling, but this was just so crazy to me. This was like, I can't believe this. So it was just like solved, mystery solved. D.B. Cooper, and this is the person, I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember this, and I remember reading about this in the news. Flash forward to October 2016, and this is after, I believe, the timeline shift happened, and then I've been researching it recently because I wanted to make sure. All the news items are saying the FBI has officially closed the D.B. Cooper case, and they have never found him, and they never will. And he's become such a mystery that they've devoted a section of like the tour area of the FBI for tourists and everything just devoted to D.B. Cooper because that's how famous a folk hero he was. And that they had no idea who he was. And I don't believe that. I think they're lying, actually. I think they might actually know who the real guy was, but it might have been embarrassing for the FBI if they disclosed for political reasons. So, but the official story is that D.B. Cooper, they have no idea who he is. And that it remains a mystery unsolved. So that's my Mandela effect. And it really freaked me the fuck out. It really made me feel like I was losing my mind. Like I was losing my personal reality. And then in the documentary that I'm including in the link about the Mandela effect, I don't know if this was an actual Bible quote, but I do remember seeing tons of artwork and memes of the lion and the lamb laying down together. And I believe that the Bible quote was something like, and the lion will lay down with the lamb. And then this tripped me out as well, because this isn't about branding or advertising or changing a logo design. This is a quote in the Bible. This is a Bible verse. This is a psalm. And so it's Isaiah 11:6. And it's the wolf will lay down with the lamb. And that was like earth-shakingly disturbing for me to see that had, and a lot of the artwork had replaced the lion with a wolf. And I remember seeing tons of like Christian artwork and memes on the internet and on Facebook, the lion will lay down with the lamb. It's something that I've seen for years as sort of like pop culture art stuff. And you will see a lot of that artwork of the lion laying with the lamb now. But the quote is, the wolf will lay with the lamb. And then later on in the verse, there's some mention of a lion, but it's not the lion will lay with the lamb. So that's really super disturbing. And I've had a ton of things like that happen lately as what I believe is a timeline change. That I've been shifted into a different reality, and things have gotten easier in a lot of ways, but things have also gotten more chaotic in other ways and more anxious. And I don't know what to do about that. So as for the US election, maybe I'll make a fourth video